Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening. I am smiling so hard to see, oh man, just being in here with all of you today. We actually, as you're planning things and to see it unfold and the conversations that have been happening out there, exactly what we wanted to do. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. It's an honor and a pleasure to open up this gathering. My name is Stephanie Glenn. I'm the Investor Relations and Development Director for Runway Roots. And we are officially welcoming you to the State of Reparative Capital Happy Hour and Fireside Chat with Jessica Norwood and Vanessa Roanhouse. Um, Ro- I know that. Roanhorse. That's terrible. I'm like, I know that. Like, why did I say that? Um, Yes, the wonderful Vanessa Roanhorse. So as we continue the conversation that we sparked a couple of months ago, tonight's offering is something deeper, a chance to be together here in Oakland. Some of you are joined us in San Francisco for ABFE, some are not, but we're here to connect, reflect, and build community around vision and reparative capital. This is an important event. We like to laugh and smile, but we all know how the seriousness of this invitation to explore what it means to reimagine how money moves in our community, to repair what's been broken, and to design systems rooted in trust, equity, and relationships. At Runway Roots, in partnership with the Roanhorse Consulting, we see gatherings like this as essential moments to listen, learn, share stories that remind us of capital and can be a tool for repair when guided by care and courage. So, really appreciate and thank you all for being here, for your curiosity, for your heart, for your financial support, for your voice, more importantly, in this evolving conversation. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome Lynn Hoey of the Kataly Foundation. Lynn and the team at Kataly have been immense supporters to both Roanhorse Consulting and Runway Roots. They were early supporters in this work and have been rooted and stabled in reparative funding through grant making, and their example has been guided by other foundations and has been pivotal in how we've been able to carry on this journey all this time. So it's a sincere pleasure to have Lynn here today as our moderator. Let's give a round of applause. It is also my great pleasure to introduce two extraordinary guests this evening, Jessica Norwood and Vanessa Roanhorse, two leaders who embody what reparative capital looks like in action. They're just not talking the talk, they're walking the walk. Jessica Norwood is a visionary investor and founder who has spent her career reimagining capital as a tool for restoration and healing. Through her work, she's challenged the norms of traditional finance and built pathways for entrepreneurs impacting Black communities to thrive, grounded in trust, community, and wealth building. Yeah. That's me. And Vanessa Roanhorse is a founder and CEO of Roanhorse Consulting, is an award-winning leader whose work centers Indigenous values, economic sovereignty, and systems change. She brings a bold, creative lens to how we design economies that truly serve people and planet. So let's give Vanessa a round of applause. I just love this dynamic duo. So together, Jessica and Vanessa are co-authors of the essay, What is Reparative Capital and Why Does It Matter? It was published in the NPR magazine. A powerful foundation for our dialogue tonight. This partnership represents what is possible when vision, integrity, and action meet. So without further ado, we will start off and welcome, 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 and enjoy.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, Jessica and Vanessa, for inviting me to moderate this panel. There's a danger here because we're friends, so we could just end up, we might get to 2 or 3 questions, but we could just end up riffing off of each other for a bit. But First of all, welcome everyone. It's so good to see everyone. I'm Lynn Hoy. I'm the Chief Investment Officer of the Kataly Foundation. And two of the proudest moments in my career has been one of the first investments I ever did when I was at RSF was into Runway when we were doing the pilot in Oakland. And the last investment we made out of the Restorative Economies Fund at Kataly was into Monsoon Fund. So this is, yeah, I know. Yeah, there you go. So, but what a gift it's been. It's really been such a gift. So I actually did write down some remarks, so I'm gonna go with that. So first of all, today I want to acknowledge that we are on unceded Ohlone land in the fabulous Oakland, California. I'd like to invite everyone to acknowledge both the ancestors of this land and also your own ancestors who, by the way, would be so proud of each and every one of you. It's no coincidence that we are all here in this moment together, and I just want to ground us in that as we move into this conversation. So as Stephanie mentioned, I work at the Kataly Foundation under the fabulous leadership of the brilliant Nwamaka Agbo. And our core values at Kataly are interdependence, regeneration, experimentation, accountability, and healing. We practice these values by being in right relationship with our community. And we're so fortunate to be in deep relationship with both Jessica and Vanessa. And I'm excited that we're going to touch on all of these values in this conversation today, as we rightly should. And so I just want to ground us in the panel a little bit more from what Stephanie said. So the purpose of the panel is to explore reparative capital as both a philosophy and a practice grounded in Afro-Indigenous ways of knowing, community accountability, and in a reorientation of finance towards healing and not extraction. I think that's so important because oftentimes, folk are out there like, this is the new thing. No, we are reorienting. This has been done for thousands of years, and we're just coming back to that practice. And I think it's really important we talk about that today. So what we hope y'all gain from this conversation is, what is reparative capital? And we have two experts who are going to tell us. And also what it is not. I think that's so important because so oftentimes we talk about what something is, but we don't talk about what it's not, and that's where they co-opt it. Why this moment demands it. There's been many moments in history that have demanded it, and it's just our moment now to take this up. How it shows up in real investment practice, because I know all the investors want to know how this actually happens. And so we're going to talk about that. And one of the most important pieces is what's at stake if we get it wrong, but what is possible if we get it right. And we don't often allow ourselves to think that. So I want y'all to hold all of that as we're having this conversation. Y'all can think about your questions you're going to have. But I'm going to kick us off with the first question. So what is reparative capital? And I'd invite either of you to start. Mm-hmm.
Well, first, it is just a sheer honor to be here with you, Lynn. Thank you so much. And my sister Vanessa, to do this again, I'm really deeply honored. Thank you for saying yes. And for all of the folks here who I have some level of relationship to, I'm really deeply honored that you took your time to come here and listen to me opine about repair. Right, right. So, one of the things that everybody here has heard the term venture capital, yeah, and you've heard the term impact investing, maybe. Yeah, this is a pretty savvy group of folks, I'm imagining. So this ain't that, okay? This ain't that. Repair really starts from recognizing let me back up one step. When Vanessa and I ended up sort of crossing paths early on in this journey, and at the same time, we were all kind of meeting each other at these conferences and things. This is 10 years or so ago when I kind of got on the road, in particular with what would become Runway. And we were invited to be the racial justice track of an impact investing. Everybody's nodding their head because you remember these times, right? It was just a few people scattered and you could just be a track of a conversation. You weren't the whole thing of a thing. But for all of us that understand how money has been made and the extraction that's happened in the bodies that money has been made off of, the disposability of those bodies and the land, it ain't just a track. It's the whole conversation. And so at that time, we were just in this little sliver of a track, all of us trying to figure out how were we going to really tell the truth about what we were facing. And I remember being on those main stages and I would talk about, at the time, they would use this term, closing the racial wealth gap. I know everybody's just like, it's so horrible to even imagine that we had to say that out loud. And I would be pouring my heart out. Because I would be remembering and thinking about how did that wealth gap come to be? The violence that actually happened, the ways that they burned down, towns and put interstates through it, and all the different ways that happened where wealth went for one group and not to another group. And I would be replaying that in my mind. And then I would look out into this audience and people would just sort of give me a little soft clap afterwards, like, okay. And they run up to me. And then, the few people who would come up would say, now tell me, how do we invest? And I have to immediately get into the transaction of a thing. I'm deeply feeling it. And now I have to talk about, okay, here's how you move the money of it. And so as time went on, I started to think there is a different way that I want to describe what it is that we're after here. And it's through the lens of repair. That this money that we're putting out is acknowledging the people who have been harmed and not skipping over that. Impact investing doesn't actually talk about the people at all. It skips over it. Venture capital does not talk about the people at all. It skips over that. But reparative talks about and centers the people. And the difference is in impact investing and venture, what you do is you center the capital. Or you center the capital providers or holders of money. So you say, oh, that person can't afford, we can't lose that money. In reparative capital, we say we can't afford to not make the investment. So we're not centering the capital, we're centering the people who've been harmed, right? That's one important element of it. The second thing that I would say about repair is that it requires for each person to be involved in it. So this isn't just a transaction that you get to casually make. It's asking for you to do your own work around race and around bias, to notice the people and to be doing your own work and to be learning and unlearning at the same time. And that, just so you know, is a lifelong body of work. I'm in that work every day. You will always be in it. And if you want your money to be impactful in communities that have been harmed, you will always be involved in the work of learning and unlearning about racial bias, around violence, around those things. You will constantly be a student. And so it requires that we show up as whole people, not just people with the paycheck, with a checkbook, right? The other thing that I would add into sort of three main things that I would say about repair is finally that it's looking for an apologetic response, not just a casual, okay, here's how much money I'm going to make. Sometimes I talk to folks who are not you guys in this room. Y'all are my favorites. But the people who are not in this room and they think that they can run with us, okay, and they're not always ready. And they will say to me, all right, I've heard you talk about, the African-American community in the United States, and we want to support their businesses and ventures and all of the things. And we want to give them Believe in You money. And we want to do all of these things. And this is how much we're looking to sort of make back. We'll loan you the money at 3%, and this is, and I said, whoa, slow down. What is it about what I've shared with you about this community that makes you think you should still make more money? Can you just get the principal back? Can I give you 100%? of the principal back? Do you need more? Right? That's an apologetic response. And so more times than not, they think about it and they say, well, I hadn't considered that. You're right. I don't need to make more. If you give us what we give you back, that's plenty. And I said, how about 80% back? I don't. But that's a little bit of our repair. What would you say?
It's so funny. So thank you, Jessica. I think going back to when we first met each other, it was one of those moments where you were talking and then I was talking. We were on a panel just like this. Yeah. And at the end, we kind of were like, wow, you filled the gaps that I wasn't thinking about, or took the same concept and was like sharing it in another way. Because the thing about reparative anything is that people have to do the work to acknowledge there was harm.
That's right.
Right. So like part of that was, where do you start? And 10 years ago, 7 years ago, I remember specifically being in rooms with tons of impact investors, the good kind of money, right? The money that's coming alongside us. And there was still just general confusion about the history of this country. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about reparative capital, we're talking about the fact that, like, for Indigenous people in the United States, the land worth today is $23 trillion.
That's right. That's right.
And I remember explicitly saying, and you still want collateral from us? Right. Like, you're still asking us to put something up?
Right.
Like, isn't that enough?
Isn't that enough?
Like, isn't that enough? And we didn't even agree to it. Mm-hmm. And I think the part that started to become clear was in this process of repair is that, like, we have to acknowledge what has happened. And the apology part is like just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. And the thing is, we're not even asking for big checks. Like, this is the other part that was really frustrating when folks were being like, great, how about 3%?
Yeah.
And I was like, how about 0%? Yeah. And you match it with a grant.
That's right.
Kataly.
Yeah, that's right.
Because, like, the thing about this is we don't have the runway. We have not been given the real legitimate runway to build financial infrastructure that allows us to build the kind of investment vehicles that our community wants. People are giving us $500,000 checks, $250,000. That is not enough money. And so when I come back and I was like, when I think about reparative capital, first we just have to acknowledge this land was stolen. Mm-hmm. And this Indigenous people were never invited to the American dream. Mm-hmm. We do not believe in the American dream because that wasn't an invitation we were offered. Yeah. So now as we sit here in this moment in this country, and folks are like, but we were told if we just worked harder, if we just were good people, we would have access. And the thing about the work that Jessica and I do, and we sit in these rooms, and it's so good to be in a room like this because we have to go every day outside of this and be in other rooms. Yeah. But what I can say now, we have language for it. Yeah. And that not only do we have language, there is a growing movement of organizations like ours. And the last part about this for me around the reparative capital framing is we're not asking you to do anything you shouldn't already be doing. But what we're asking you is to just sit in the uncomfortableness so that we can do the work that you couldn't.
Yes. Yeah.
Couple of things I want to pick up on that you both said. And, you were talking about people not understanding, like, the history of this country. And I would just maybe say that there's willful ignorance. It's willful that they're not sitting in that discomfort. I also hate the term impact investing and the reason I do that is because every investment has impact and we never talk about the negative sides of it, right? So, like, if I'm investing in tech companies right now, I'm contributing to genocide in multiple places, and so I think that's a really important piece of it when we talk about impact invest, which is why it's so important to talk about, to like own the language around reparative capital, because impact investing has terrible impacts across the world. And I think y'all have done a really good job of like going to my second question about the case for repair. So I really want to get to looking at an Afro-Indigenous lens on capital, because I think it's a really critical part. And so both of you come to this work through Afro-Indigenous perspectives, as you've just started to share, and also ways of knowing. How do those worldviews fundamentally shape how you think about capital investment and responsibility? And Vanessa, maybe I'll start with you.
Well, first of all, like, you have to know your relation, like your way of living and your being and your culture and your ancestors and your future, your past, your present is interdependent.
Yes.
Right? Like, my success is your success. In the Haudenosaunee Treaty, they say the way it's structured is we may not get everything we want, but we get everything we need.
Mm.
And I think like part of the journey of this country is starting with like, who got it? Like, what happened and who has had the worst impacts?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this country was designed to do exactly what it's doing, and we know that. And I think so much of the history is designed to try to ensure that we don't build kinship.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like, if you were an enslaved person that was brought here, you probably have indigenous blood in your system.
Mm-hmm.
Because we had to work together. We had to figure out how to survive.
Yes.
But we were forced to be enemies. We were forced to create these caste systems due to the socio-political economic system that was structured here. And they used money to do this. So when I think about the relationship, our stories are intertwined. They're braided together. And we talked a lot about this when we did our article, but also why we wanted to start to have this conversation on like reparative capital, because when we work to address the greatest harms and we create solutions for those harms, everyone benefits. I mean, this is not new, but when we come together and we say we will have shared story and we will have shared grief and shared pain, but we can lean on each other.
Yeah.
Suddenly, my community, which is only a recognized 3% in the United States, becomes a larger community.
Oh.
Because we were almost extinct through the course of time. But when we acknowledge our connectedness and our interconnected dependence, we can do so much more. And I would say from an Indigenous worldview and perspective, so much of the way we have to approach this is from a place of decentering ourselves as the primary beneficiary of everything we do, and start to think about the broader beneficiary, which is all living beings. All things can exist at the same time and be true.
Mm-hmm.
And that when we acknowledge all belief systems are valid, and that at the end of the day, human beings are the least important, we might be able to approach money in a different way.
Ooh.
We might be able to be like, maybe if all of us just got what we needed, but not everything, our lives could be better.
Yeah. 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 Ooh. I love that interdependence part, because that really is at the root of what I would say having an Afro and Indigenous framework is really about, is seeing ourselves connected to one another, to the land, to the resources, and thinking about the totality, not just me, I. It's a very, very specific way that we move money in this culture that doesn't actually align to how we would see ourselves and how we might move in our own homes, how we think and care for our children. I grew up at my grandmama's house. My mother was around, and all of my aunties, all of the kids came over to the grandmother's house, and we lived communally. And wasn't abnormal for us. I don't know other people who sort of grew up in that way, but we had a relationship where resources were shared in the family, in a neighborhood. It was not a difficult idea. But then I got grown and I got out in the world, and I was taught that thinking about and caring about the people and places where I come from, that was a poor use of my time and of my resources. The one thing I want to tap into, and you both sort of said this in different ways, is about grief. One thing that Afro and Indigenous practices have is the meaning of life and relationship, and also a meaning and relationship to grieving, that our modern culture in the United States in particular, broad culture, but it's also sort of been exported everywhere, does not actually do this. And here's what I mean. When you don't grieve together, you don't actually know what matters. You don't know what to value. When you don't know what to value, then anybody can come in and say, this is more valuable than this. You don't know what's really worthy. These are the tenets that are underneath how we move capital. What's valuable, what's worthy, right? But because we don't have a solid grief practice, we can't actually understand what is being taken from us and understand the importance of those things. So reparative capital asks you to get more intimate with the grief, to sit in the moment of understanding what has happened in this culture and in this world, and do something about it. But don't swallow it by yourself. Interdependence tells you somebody else is there to walk with you and to hold you when you fall out because the overwhelmingness of it. You're not alone in that. And each and every one of us is feeling the pain of dreams not fulfilled, of making choices between this thing or that thing, and not having all the things that we have needed, righteously have really needed. Not things that we just think we want. I mean, righteously really needed. And we feel that, but there's no place to actually talk about it. There's no place to actually do anything about it. Reparative capital says, not on my watch. Don't do it that way. To give yourself permission to have a real grief practice, to really sit with the discomfort, to cry, to wail, to pray, to meditate, to sit in the land, put your hands into soil and sand and water, to get connected to life bigger than just yourself, to be able to contract and contrast and go in and go out and do it over and over and over again. Daily practice around it. Right now, if a loved one passes away, you got to put in one day off and one time, and you got to get it done on next weekend, or else it's not going to happen because it's moving in, moving out. And in other cultures, I have the privilege and honor of living in Jamaica. Let me tell you, they love to funeralize in Jamaica. I don't know if y'all have been over there. All right. Okay. But it's an African way of doing remembrance, where they're going to have 9 nights. They're going to have long days, and people are going to bring food. Nobody has to call you and invite you to come and honor the life of somebody else. This is just a part of the culture. Imagine if we started remembering each other, that you mattered, that you are important to all of us. Once I start connecting those dots, then I know it's too valuable, it's too important for me to let a whole neighborhood in, East Oakland disappear. Now I know that that's important. And that's what this invites us to do, is to remember and get intimate to the practices that your ancestors and those who came before you all held, and use that as your guide. Don't make money your God. The people and the place and the relationships are all that really matters. And that's where you source your decisions from, not by somebody saying this is what the return profile should look like.
Before, just this is like,
Yes, sister.
okay. What is happening right now is people are experiencing in an isolated time in which money is disappearing. Access to resources is gone.
Yeah.
They're watching our country do things they never thought it could happen. We all knew it was going to happen. I'm sorry. I was talking to someone earlier and I was like, I heard someone say, wow, I guess everyone's finally feeling like they live on a reservation now. It was funny, not funny. But what I'm saying is, when we talk about the lack of a way in which we work through our pain and our isolation and grief, we are having a collective moment in this country, and people do not know what to do with that grief.
Yes.
People do not know what to do with their isolation.
Yes.
So we can be quiet and stock our pantries up with toilet paper and hoard whatever we need to hoard, or we can actually do what other folks are starting to do, which is knock on their neighbors' doors. Start to understand that money doesn't bring safety or joy. Money is not the reason we're here, but the problem is, like, folks are like, well, where do we go?
Yeah.
I'm just going to say, this is the conversation that needs to be happening.
Yeah.
And not with just us. I'm talking about banks. We're talking about investment firms. We're talking about real estate companies. Like, we need a collective reparative moment.
Yes.
And I just needed to bring that up because as you were talking about the way people grieve and stuff, and I'm thinking, everyone I know is grieving right now.
Right now.
Everyone's grieving for what they thought their children were going to get access to.
Yes.
Right? Universities, education, joy, jobs. We don't know if that's guaranteed anymore.
No, that's right.
But we all knew this was like, we knew we were skating on thin ice. And so I just wanted to kind of level that moment up because this conversation Jessica and I started last year. We didn't know how bad it was going to get.
Yeah. No.
Right? We didn't know. But history tells us it's going to get bad.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to add that. Sorry, Lynn.
Jessica and I spent a lot of time talking about grief over the last few years. So I actually think this is a really rich part of the conversation that we actually don't acknowledge and talk about. And what happens, what Jessica and I talked about is, like, if you're not processing your grief and honoring your grief and being in community, you're building within that grief. So what are we actually building because we're not processing that? And that's a huge issue. And then what harm is happening because people don't understand how to process that grief? And so I think the grief conversation is a very rich conversation that needs to happen. And you can't capitalism your way out of grief. There's absolutely no way you can do it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've tried a few times, but it doesn't work. But I also want to pick up on a couple of things that I think it's really important. Jessica, you spoke a lot about community when you were younger, and then going from, like, being in community and, like, honoring what that means to be in kindredship, and then you become an adult, and then it's like, that's not valuable. But you're thinking about that differently now. And so I'm wondering if you'll talk a little bit about how community care is being used as an investment strategy. What does that actually look like to invest in a way that demonstrates care for people, place, and relationships? And you've touched on that a bit already. But also, how would that feel different, or how has it felt different for both of y'all, for the founders, the communities, and the investors you're in relationship with?
Okay. All right. So y'all forgive me if I get technical and wonky. I'm trying to stay not like, go into my super nerd land. Okay. But what I would say about community is, I mean, we've already touched on portions of this around what interdependence is and the way that we think about community really broadly. Where I would go next with this is to say, one of the things that was really important to me early on was to put out early rounds of money for innovators and creators in our community. And a lot of folks were just like, why? Probably since I was a kid, since I could remember, People have been saying we needed access to capital for forever. We still need access to capital. I don't know if you're going to go, you everywhere you go, access to capital is the thing. We still haven't solved it, right? And so it wasn't the juiciest thing to talk about because people have been saying it forever. But what I kept thinking about was what it means to love on somebody really deeply and see their vision and their ideas and to see their brilliance and say, you matter and you're worth it. That was the kind of money I wanted to put out in the world, right? What I ended up writing a book called Believe in You Money, because I was like, it's not even friends and family money. This is believe in you money. This is really us saying, I see you, I believe in you, I think you're worthy, I think you're important. I don't want to skip over noticing you. Think about how much that matters to all of us. Who believed in you? Who saw you and saw something special in you? I've had everybody on this stage here has believed in me and so many people in this room. And man, it has changed my life. And so I wanted to give that to someone else, to just believe in them. That's community care. Is acknowledging the wholeness of a person and their brilliance and saying, you have something to contribute and what your contribution is could be the very thing that saves my life. Selfishly, I'm putting money out there because I'm expecting you to get it done. Make sure that I have good snacks and nice wine, Alicia, right? Make sure that we have the right technology. Make sure that we have all of the best things in life. So that's community. I see my success. I see myself in you. That's community. You see yourself in me. That's community. And then from a very tactical way, the way that we move money is through community-led funds. And so in every community where we're operating in, we raise money and then we teach community how to do the things that used to happen at community banks when people would do local underwriting and things like that. We remind them, right? Like we're all like, oh, the good old day. But we remind them of what it means to know your neighbor, to know what business is going to be great on that block, to make decisions and to give them the power and information to do it. And so I consider myself at this point a glorified fundraiser because all I'm doing is raising the money to give it to community, to say, give it to people who you love and you believe in. That's it. That's our model. That's community care. To teach what you know to each other, to utilize yourself as fully and deeply as you can, to pour out your life force for the other people around you is community care. Every single day, nonstop. Yeah.
Vanessa, you know what? We all love that, right?
We'll take it.
Now, I know, Vanessa, you've got a very practical way of doing that through the 5 R's. And so we've spoken about it multiple times. Yeah. And it really guides your work. And I would really love for you to talk us through that framework. And I've been told we only have 5 minutes left.
Okay.
But yeah, it went quickly, didn't it?
Okay. Okay. So I'm a learner by trade. If you watched Reservation Dogs, season 2, episode 3, Season 2, episode 3 on Reservation Dogs, there's a scene where Dallas Goldtooth, who's playing the spirit guide, is in a porta potty. And Bear, the young indigenous guy, is working at a construction job and he's having a hard time and he's in the next porta potty. And he's upset because he's just like, oh, this job sucks. It takes forever. And Dallas Goldtooth says, what do you mean? This is how indigenous people learn. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, the indigenous pedagogy is just get out there and learn, fucker. And what I mean by that is so much of what we have built, the 5 R's included, was because all of the stuff, all the underwriting, all the criteria has never worked for indigenous people or Indian country, ever.
Mm-hmm.
So we approached it from, okay, well, what do they use? They use the 5 C's of credit. And then as we explored the 5 C's of credit, we're like, oh, this isn't even a regulation or a requirement. It's a best practice. But it's been weaponized for so long. So we came up with the 5 R's. And the 5 R's were a way for us to, one, ask our community members for different materials. A lot of us don't have the resources to have collateral. And by hell, if I'm asking an Indigenous woman to put up her truck, we had one woman tell us a CDFI asked her to get what is it when you die? A life insurance policy, and write it over to them.
Yeah, do that. Do that.
And we were like, okay, we're not doing that. We're not messing with this. So we decided to create a completely different underwriting framework. And the 5 R's are literally an R that represents the C, but from a community design.
Mm-mm.
And the questions we ask are you from where you're going to build your business? What is the future in which you are successful, and how do you support your community?
Yeah.
What we wanted to do was to demonstrate that the risk profile that people have been using is completely wrong.
Yeah.
And so the 5 R's started in microfinance because, we had to get the receipts to demonstrate that Indigenous women didn't have to provide the same C's and that they were highly investable. So we did. And then we raised it up to 30,000, and then we raised it to 50, and now we've raised it up to 250,000, and we hope our future fund will be in the millions. And the 5 R's investment framework from microfinance has the rigor and the sophistication now to go from $500 to $250,000, because it's about asking the right questions to the people that they can actually participate. Yeah. But it's also about putting the risk on the investor, not the founder.
Yes. Come on, Repair. Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So the 5 R's is what we are saying to the world. This is possible because our portfolios have performed better than what they expected and better than their traditional portfolios.
That's right.
So the last thing I'll say about that is we are now putting it into practice with other partners who are credit unions and CDFIs, because we can't do this with a $3 million fund. We can't do the systems change at the size that's needed, which is why we're also, just to drop it here, building the first Indigenous Futures Tech Hub in San Francisco right now. Yeah. Is because we need a bigger platform.
Yeah.
So the 5 R's isn't just for Indigenous people, it's for everybody.
It's for everybody.
I have to close this out, which makes me so sad. I know, but we're going to take questions from the audience. Wait, hold on. Let me ask Stephanie. Stephanie, can I do the closing prompt now, or you want me to do that after questions? Okay. So we've said a lot. We have so much more to say. But I'm like, this should be like a 4-hour thing, and it should be a masterclass. People should pay for it, frankly. So we're going to do a little bit of a call to action. So if you can leave the audience with one invitation or one responsibility, something they should do differently as a result of this conversation, but I'm hoping y'all are already thinking about what you're going to do differently. What would that be?
Wow. Invite me to talk to all your friends. Let me talk to them, okay? Just let me at them. And in this moment in time, I would say don't close yourself off. Don't desensitize. Don't lose the plot. Continue to pray, meditate, whatever way that you sort of show up outside of yourself. Continue to do that kind of work. Have courageous conversations with yourself and with others. Invite transformation into your life deeply, into the work that you do, into your personal life and space. Give yourself permission to cry because it hurts, because there has been so much violence, so much disappointment. And if you're not feeling it, then you are detaching yourself from your humanity, and we desperately need your humanity today. Yeah.
I think what Jessica just said is exactly what I think everyone should do. And then I think, yes, you should ask us to come and do this talk wherever you think we should be. because we are ready to do this 500 more times. We'll do as much as we can. I would also say that, like, in order for us to do this, we need you to be having conversations with your funders, your investors, specifically about reframing risk. And most importantly, we need to accelerate this work faster. Like, the fact that it's taken me 10 years to get here, what a journey. So grateful. I'm so glad I had this journey, but I can't do another 10 years doing this at $3 million a pop. You know what I mean? Like, we need a lot of money. So I say that from a place of, like, as you are talking to the people you're talking to, and as you're building the things that you're doing and you're working on vehicles, we have products, we have ways. Don't build it on your own. Like, most importantly, don't start from zero. Like, you don't have to, whether it's us or other people. There's Melanie Allen right there. She's got a whole investment strategy. I'm just saying, there is a group of us. There's a movement. Don't do it by yourself. We got to move faster, and we got to get this money faster. So,
So before I go to questions, could I get a round of applause for Jessica and Vanessa in this fabulous conversation? Thank y'all so much. Okay, now I know you're not shy. So questions. Okay, I'm gonna go backwards and come forward. So I'm gonna Mandy.
Do I need a mic?
No,
we can hear you.
Okay, great. One, thank you so much for doing this. Yes, May 7th, if you're available, Philly, we'll talk to you later. I never asked to bring my kids. I always just bring them because we are, as you said, we are in such a time where they are not going to have the same jobs that we did. So I've been making notes, writing, and like all the things that you're saying. So thank you for your patience and them being here. My other thing, my audience are people like myself who formerly come from corporate. I have transitioned to become an investor and really into doing this work and transitioning more people who are in corporate positions to understand their own value and their power as investors. But it's tiring. And even with our own people, there's still this conditioning of like, this is too much risk. So I'd love to hear from you all. One, we can talk more, but also like when you're having conversations with our people who need to be unlocked, what are some things that have been successful for you in a short amount of time? Or is it just over time?
I'm going to actually put Lynn on the spot here because this is actually a part of Lynn's ministry to get folks ready and together. What would you say to that?
I mean, I think part of it is like challenging people as to where they came up with those assumptions at first, right? It's like, as Vanessa said earlier, so much of this stuff is just best practices. It's just made up. But also like really sitting with people and meeting them where they're at and trying to understand, like, you know, I had to do so much unlearning. Like, I have a finance, accounting, and investing background. I had to do a ton of unlearning because we are all conditioned into this system. And so one of the things that's been really good is just sitting and meeting people and being like, I see you, to what you were saying earlier, and understand your story. And getting very curious and asking questions. Well, why do you assume it's riskier? Have you actually ever seen that in the communities that you've invested in? Have you seen that within your own families? And just trying to make it as personal as possible has been really helpful in moving people along. And trying to find cohorts where folk can go to and have these conversations is super important. Because the thing is, like, we're very fortunate. We're all in community with each other, but we can only do this because we're in community with each other. People who are wealth holders are coming to this work first. They're scared of being the first person to do it in case something goes wrong. But if you can, and both of these funds have done incredibly well, right? Better than credit unions and CDFIs and banks have performed. But to bring wealth holders into cohorts and conversations where they don't feel so alone, so people are like taking a quote unquote risk together, has been the most helpful in moving people forward by far. Rich folk need as much community around doing this work differently as practitioners do. But there has to also be a bifurcation between that, because when I've seen it done together, sometimes it can cause harm. Okay, Alicia.
Hi everyone, my name is Alicia Kidd, and I'm the owner of one of the #1 tasting rooms, and I'm also the owner of an AI consultancy. I think it's important what's missing, and I'm also a beneficiary of Runway, which they have been one of the best funders. Several CDFI rounds. That's why I was saying, like, I have some story to tell. My question is, I wonder why is it that what's missing is people like me, the actual business, and this is not with Runway because they have a interdynamic relationship with businesses like us. But my question is, why is it that there's never businesses at the table? And I say that because particularly in this social impact world, I've experienced where people look at me as just Black-owned businesses as charity businesses. But when you get to know me, I have a degree in finance. I have a master's degree, 15 years of experience in corporate running multi-enterprises, going into AI. You get what I'm saying? So once I wonder, what are we going to do to bridge the gap between the wealthy investors and the business owners, and then we have changed the narrative to know that the future, the present and the future is Black-owned businesses. And I say Black-owned, Indigenous-owned, we're the #1 employers of people of color. So how can we bridge the gap? And then finally, when are we gonna stop going to the 1% for money and then tapping in within our own?
Oh, it was all of the questions at one time. Okay. I mean, I'll take a shot at it. Alicia, you know, what we're acknowledging right now, Vanessa and I are saying, it took us 10 years to get to what in finance world is bare minimum. And you're saying, how can we bring those same people who treat us sometimes unfairly to you? I wouldn't do it. To be honest, I want you to have a better journey than I have had in that moment. That's why we take the money in and then try to give you a good experience. We've also been very blessed to have investors like Kataly and like so many others. So we don't get as much resource because everybody isn't really prepared in the way that they need to be. And so you've got the investors that are not prepared, the intermediaries, folks who don't get the resourcing that they fully need. It's not fully mature enough. And so by the time it meets the business owner, it's just not a mature enough system for it to be equitable and in right relationship the way that it really should be. And that's just the truth of what part is happening there. I would say you're experiencing folks thinking that you're a charity. I am experiencing that we're a charity as well. And that in some way, this is, you want to help people with their businesses, as if everything isn't about business, as if it isn't all about money. Like, what are we saying here? And people have a way in the investment space to other us, and they'll say, well, we really care about, this is something that we didn't actually say, but now I'm about to talk to you like I know you, like we're going to close the door and I'm going to say this. One of the reasons that Vanessa and I decided to have this conversation together was because in the investment community, people would say, and this is an anti-Blackness thing, okay, that they could feel more comfortable talking to Vanessa than they could talking to me when we do the exact same thing and we see each other as the same. We don't separate ourselves from that. And we say, oh, no. We're not gonna let them do that to us. We are family. We are in community. We've learned together. We work together. But there's a particular way. And even when Vanessa's experiencing it, she's experiencing it a different way, similarly. So it's not like it's one person's getting a better thing. It's just good old fashioned exploitation. And when white supremacy, that's what's happening. And so we're all swimming in it and inside of it, and we desperately want to get out. To the latter part of the question around going to the 1% for capital, and then instead of doing the work of building meaningful pathways and aggregating small amounts of money together, we've got to, as a community, believe that we have real power and agency. And the only way that we can really start to believe and understand that we have real power and agency is the more of us have to keep stepping up and trying a thing. It's just good old fashioned. We just say this is how you learn it. And, in indigenous country, you have to get out and just do it over and over and over again. And what I can say that has been a beautiful thing is when I started 10 years ago, everybody thought that what I was saying was so radical. They were like, oh my gosh, not her one to give the money to the people. people like this. Right. Now what I'm doing is so normalized. So many funds do what I'm doing at this point that people are just like, now, how are you different from them? I'm saying, oh, wait, I was the one who said it, you know? But so we have to keep pushing. We have to keep pushing, Alicia, and we will keep pushing. And we do believe that there is a world and there is a place where we're not only listening to big corporations or chamber of commerce, but that solopreneurs' political power really matters in this conversation more than what they ever get airplay to do. And we want to see that happen.
All I'm going to add to this is like that last part of the question that you so just for me is, if we don't believe in ourselves that we can do this, we can't do it.
Yeah.
And I can say that having just come back from an event in New York, and if my community members can't figure out the relationship they want to have with capital, and we don't have time for trauma healing, we will struggle to build the things we know are true and possible because we are so afraid of what money has done to us historically.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And as a result of that, we don't play in this space. I can honestly say, as an Indigenous person who does this work, our firm is one of the few firms in the country that plays in this space.
That's right.
And I hate to say it, I get called a capitalist sellout. I mean, I'm looking at Rachel like, I'm like, you know, like, I have community members who are like, how dare you work in that space? But on the other side, on the back end, I'm able to move resources. I'm able to give them the undergirding to keep the work, the movement, the dream alive. But there is a come to your holy person, whoever it is, that needs to happen faster.
Yeah.
And I can just say the trauma of money and our disconnection that they have worked so hard to build is what we're facing.
Yes.
And we will not have a generation of healing because it is not possible in these times.
Ooh.
However, if we can find ways that we can believe in ourselves, I know it's possible, but man, talk about the work ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Zakia? Thank you. Zakia Harris, Black Space Cooperative. First of all, this was amazing. I'm super inspired. And one of the things I've been thinking about is we don't really need more Black billionaires, you know? And so as we think about, you know, repair and structures, there's so many just structural inequities in terms of the way that we support kind of the shiny founder of the moment. I've been that person. I've also worked on the healing side, watching the burnout and the lack of capacity and the lack of the strong team, right, that's required, organizational brain trust, not really transferring in terms of building like generational or wealth in organizations and in communities. So I'm curious to hear your insights on kind of disrupting that hierarchy in terms of collective models of ownership, land trust, cooperatives, you know, and then within that kind of building on what she was saying, the mutual aid within that. And so it doesn't mean that we're not still seeking and demanding those funds because they are part of reparations, but also knowing that we have so much inherent wealth that we don't engage in and as a community, and kind of building that muscle of the healing and trust to just work together. Because there's just so much harm that this work can do. So I'm going to pause there. I think you get what I'm saying, but I just love to hear you all brains on that.
Sure. You know, it's funny that I was at a conversation with somebody who was a funder person, and they, of course, mislanguaged mutual aid as charity. And I was like, wait, what? They're like, yeah, you know, mutual aid, it's like, you know, it's like charity, like they're taking, and I was like, no, mutual aid is the opposite of charity. So my first part on this is like, you know, there's a growing movement around what a young people I heard say a mutual aid economy. I don't know what that is yet, but I like it. But I will say this, this idea that we don't need more billionaires, 100%. Because, what happens is just like trauma of money, if you've been harmed by money and you were poor or money was weaponized against you, rich people also have trauma of money because they stop acting like human beings and forget that they're interconnected and they make bad choices.
Mm-hmm.
So the spectrum of happiness is somewhere, I don't know how much it is, but it's in there. When I think about things like community ownership models or community-owned fund structures and community-owned governance, the answer is yes. However, what I think is the challenge here is that, in order for us to do that, we have to understand it's going to be place-based, it's going to be localized, and it's not going to be like a massive bank gets developed. We have to triple down to where we live, into the roots, and understand where does institutional wisdom and knowledge live, and how do these models succeed beyond the one or two people who start the idea. Mm-hmm. Because I can tell you so many colleagues of mine who have built incredible community-owned real estate models, trusts, land trusts. Even here, right, we have Segurite Land Trust, who's done some of the most important work on Ohlone land. The work is so much bigger than Karina. And so she's having to understand, how does she translate land ownership from an indigenous Ohlone mindset to the youth who need to become developers, planners, investors, systems builders. Mm-hmm. Because part of what we don't have is time. And it's not to say we don't. I mean, we've got thousands of years in front of us. Mother Earth is going to do what Mother Earth is going to do. The question is, will community ownership be a thing? Mm-hmm. So where we are is really good examples have been built, like what we've been doing. I think we're going to have to be bolder and more demanding, but we're going to have to do it from a place where we aren't trying to build the thing they built in Atlanta for Oakland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can I just add that? So I'm the CEO of Roanhorse Consulting. Time and energy, socially, emotionally, we all have to put in, right? Because not everyone's coming in the same space. So one of the big things we do is we've created a culture of care. We have psychological safety, the whole thing. But the other thing we've really done is the entire revenue or budget is almost up to 80% goes to our team. So our profit is very small because we're a social enterprise for profit. So when we invest in something, we fully invest our entire team of 15 people who all come from different parts of being indigenous. And that's a piece I don't think we talk about, right? Capacity, emotional, mental health. We just are go, 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 because it's for the greater good. Yeah. But at one point, do we not stop and pause and take care of ourselves, our people and community, in order to do this hard work? That's right. We can't. It's impossible. So that's where the investment comes in. All of it goes to our team, staff, and community. And we have maybe a small profit. We do health, dental, everything. That's where I think the big component, because we don't do co-ownership. We don't do co-op.
We can't afford it.
It's so
We can't afford co-ownership.
hard. That doesn't mean we're not looking into it. But shit if it's not hard. We can barely run our company now to get people living wages based on where they live. Yeah. Family living wages, regardless if they have a family or not. Yeah.
We can't afford co-ownership. Okay.
Is it Myron? Yeah, Maroon. Hi there, everybody. I'm Maroon with Pacific Community Ventures. Plus one to everything that everyone's saying. So many plus ones. And so one thing I wanted to ask you guys is your perspectives on balancing this want to be reparative and also the want to build wealth in our communities. I think being the son and also entrepreneurs and stuff is that notion of we want to support, we want to be able to get things, but also balancing that notion of we can't give everything for free, or how do we derive also value back to ourselves. So I guess as we talk about being reparative and not necessarily wanting to make money off of somebody else, but how do we make money? And also I guess that goes back into when money even exists. Yeah. Right? Will you be able to just build things around?
So reparative doesn't mean you don't make money. Just sit in that for a second, because I never said anything about not making money. I talked about who you have to be to move it, but it doesn't mean you don't make a profitable business is a profitable business. Okay. You don't have to harm the people and the planet to get a good return. Let that sink. It's very important. Because most of the ways what we're talking about right now in our modern philosophy of wealth and money is that I have to screw somebody over. I've got to, dump something over here in the toxic in this Black, brown, indigenous community. I've got to take a shortcut. I've got to do an exploitative thing. I've got to not pay people in order to get outsized returns. I'm talking about wholly, incredibly outsized returns. That's not what I'm saying. A good business is a good business. We want businesses to make money. What we've probably done at this point, though, we have not gotten comfortable with recognizing what the sort of wider range of wealth is. Because there's money wealth, and then we're talking about our health and our well-being and our capacity. I know a lot of founders that are completely, to the sister's point, completely burned out, chasing wealth. And when you ask them, is it worth it? No. So the thing we keep telling everybody to aspire to, they don't even want it. So we've got to get more comfortable with saying, this is enough. This is enough. I feel connected to the people around me. I have paid the people well. We are moving at a pace where we're not leaving anybody behind. Right? That's wealth. The environment is safe. I can go to the beach in the middle of the day and frolic and hang out, and I'm not arrested or anything crazy. That's wealth. Frolicking is wealth, okay? Frolicking is wealth. So we've got to get a broader definition of wealth and stop taking on an oppressive definition of wealth. An exploited, that's rooted in exploitation, because that's how those returns are made. That's how it actually happens. You get a whole, 10x, 3, whatever it is, somebody got screwed. Because the rate of return is supposed to match the rate of return that life has. How long it takes for a tree to grow. That's a rate of return. Things take time. It should take time. We shouldn't have to, we're saying we have to hurry up and do a thing, but then also my sister Vanessa said, but Mother Earth is going to be here. Time is still there. Things take time and things take care. And we have to be comfortable with that as a real wealth practice. Yeah.
The last thing, because I would just add, is we could run our funds if they actually gave us real checks.
Hey!
I'm just saying, we could offer these loans, like what we're building, if they actually gave us real money, instead of having to compensate to pay our team and our staff to do this work with grants. Do you know what I mean? Like we wouldn't have to bundle the back office resources it costs or the outreach costs if we were able to, if someone gave Jessica $250 million to build a blah, 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 she wouldn't need anything else. For 100 years, you could build something and it would last. So I'm just saying part of it is you're asking us to experiment on some of the most important things, and we're giving you the best data back saying, look at how successful this is. And then people are like, but you're so expensive. And it's just yeah, because you're giving us $1 million right to invest in it. Of course it's nothing, because you're making us have to do an entire ecosystem cultural healing build, right? Over generations with $250,000.
And make a community and do this. In fact, it's Not only is it not enough, but I would just say this for myself. It's boring. Like, I'm bored. I've already solved all the things you're talking about. $250 million, we can do that in our sleep. We have the infrastructure already. I'm bored now. Give me more to work with. You want to solve a real thing? Let's solve a real thing. Otherwise, I just think, oh, you're just kidding around. And I'm just flying around, just talking to people or whatever, put my cute clothes on and stuff like that.
I mean, they are cute clothes.
You know, because we could be doing so much more fabulous things together. But now we're in the unfabulousness. And I just, yeah, you know.
I'm going to take a little bit of, because you got on my favorite point, right? Which is like the returns, market-based, market rate, whatever it is. And the what is enough question, I think every investor in this room should be asking, what is enough? Right? Like that is just a key fundamental piece of it. But also like, do you know what a market-based return is? Can anybody in this room tell me what a market-based return is in investing in a community like Pritchard, Alabama, that has had historic extraction, systemic racism? It's like, this is where the unlearning piece comes into that I was trying to talk about earlier is we really have to get clear around what we are asking communities to give back when we take over and over and over and over again. I mean, it's an uncomfortable conversation that we had to have at Kataly. We spent like 2 years talking about this when we did our investment strategy, but it was an important conversation to have because we need examples of that, because we need to get through this together, and we can't get through it together if somebody's making 20% in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
Stephanie, how much more time do we have for questions? I don't know what my accent was doing there, but whatever.
You were over 5 minutes ago. Take the 2.
Okay.
Rachel?
To offer a couple of things. First, the first thing I wanted to offer is acknowledgement that you both have been doing this work longer than I have. And I want to acknowledge you in your ancestorship and the work that I do. And I think that
Rachel.
Pardon?
It just dawned on me. I was like, Rachel.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry, keep going.
I just want to acknowledge that because I think that we've just turned profitable at Addistina, and the world's very interested in what we're doing, has always been very interested in what we're doing because we're in public markets. And it's talk about burnout, it's very hard. It's been 5 years and it's like, woo, I can't even imagine 10 years. So it just feels, what I've had to do to get where I am has felt like, I'm not saying it's true, but it's felt like it's required me to not acknowledge the people who came, who've already been in the space and came before me, and being in here is like really, like, you're what I'm standing on. So I just want to make sure I acknowledge that, just from my heart.
Thank you.
And I also wanted to offer an invitation to the extent that you're comfortable. This is a special room, because I see who's here. This is a special room. I wanted to invite you to reflect on how has this work changed you? Like, how have you been shaped? How has the wood of what you are been shaped by what this work has been, like in the beautiful ways and in the painful ways? Because I do think the healing is about the harm, and it's also about the beauty of what we become through the pain. So I just wanted to invite you, to the extent that you're comfortable, just to reflect on it with us. It would be a gift to me.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I feel like if you don't know who Rachel is, you should get to know her and what she's been doing, creating new asset classes. Like, this is pretty significant work, what you have done with your business. And I just want to say thanks for that. I really appreciate it. I have to be really honest, because my twin sister's sitting here, because if I do my usual, everything's great, she'll be like, no, it's not. She's like, I've seen you. I mean, this work has. I've nearly walked away multiple times. I've lost relationships. I've harmed my body over time, not taking care of it. I wasn't there for my kid. It's hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is being misunderstood or gaslit that one thing people would always say is, do they really need money? Because we've created X, Y, and Z mechanism for funding or finance, and nobody has taken this money and it's like, no, your money doesn't work. You don't, right? Doesn't mean that they don't need the money, right? People don't even want that money. And so being in rooms, I've had my work stolen, and people, a person who was one of the thieves said, "This is just business. This is just how it is." And I was like, "No, that's how you do business." I have, been on the road more than I've cared to be, and I'm not compensated for the majority of the times that I'm speaking or doing a thing. We are mostly working with, Black folks who come in with their own trauma around money. And so while you're trying to do a transformative thing, you're having to internally do the healing thing real time over and over and over again. So I gotta, work on this, build this thing out here, and internally do the healing work and support people when they falling out, because they're like, oh Lord, what has happened to us in this money, and the hurt and the heartbreak of those things, and constantly having to hold space for that over and over and over again in rooms and conversations when other people are having their heartbreak. I'm having to hold space for those things as well. And doing it without enough resource, or, so you've got these and then you don't have enough resource and then you don't get the full respect. And so it's taken a lot. It takes a lot. I also will say that it has shaped me in a way where I have experienced also some of the most profound joy of my life. Because there's nothing better in the world to know that you are doing your divine purpose. Just, it feels extraordinary. I feel every day like some of the things that other people are sort of navigating about, should I do this? Or I know I'm on it. Listen, I'm on the job, And so that part of it feels superb. That part feels superb. So the trade-off has been gnarly. It has been rough going. And every time I get a little bigger and I get a little more success, the stakes get higher. So it doesn't actually stop. The pressure doesn't stop. It just means I got to hold more. And listen, I have done, let me tell you about the therapy I've had to do around this. I've had hypnosis, EMDR. I done sat by the fire and chanted. I have had to do everything, friend, to get it right. I'm a shaman. I don't know if y'all know that. I had to do everything to work through all of this money trouble and nastiness that comes around it, and the way that people just move inside of it. It's not just putting out the capital. It's healing hearts. It's changing the world one moment at a time, and changing myself each and every time. So, yeah. Thank you for asking. Yeah.
And us all, I see professional filming happening. the thing that'll help me get you in room, send me the video.
We'll send a video.
Everybody
Yeah,
here.
there you go.
I mean, it'll help me get you in room.
Always, yeah. All right, last one.
Hi, it's Jeff Mendelson with Global Code. I was thrilled to see the title of this. I've always felt reparative capital is honest, it's necessary, and I haven't seen it happening so much. And so from a state of reparative capital, I'm just, I try to deploy reparative capital in my work. I sometimes use the term, I sometimes don't. And I'm just curious, like, the level of buy-in from the funding community. Is it just like the Solidarity members that are spending down a fort? Like, I'm just curious about the state of reparative capital from, like, we all, I think, in this room know it's important, know it's true, know it's real, know it's necessary. How do we use that term? And is there buy-in? Is there a burgeoning group of funders that are seeing it? Just curious in that lens, in terms of what is the state of it in that?
I'm seeing it happening all over the place. So, from when we started using the term to now, reparative philanthropy is really growing. I don't know as much as it is solidly showing up in investing just yet, but in philanthropy, we've seen Edgar Villanueva's work around repair, and the work of Robert Wood Johnson Foundation just recalibrating, saying that they're going to take a reparative stance. We've seen Omidyar Network spin off a reparative fund outside of their work. So I'm seeing a lot of philanthropic efforts starting to show up and use specifically the reparative language. And I do see a connective tissue between folks who are doing reparations also starting to talk about repair and reparative capital, because there's this piece of people trying to figure out what is the response from a philanthropic nature, what is the response from state and actors and how they put it, and then what's private capital. And so reparative capital starts to speak to a little bit more about what the gears of that looks like. And I imagine in the next year to 3 years, you'll see more people really claiming that language, because they're trying to get proximate to the people and places that really matter and looking for a piece of language that helps them to get to it. So we're seeing a lot of movement right now. Yeah.
I think part and alongside that, though, that's complicated is, if anyone works in this space, is that these terms come up. And suddenly they're catalytic capital, they're integrated capital, they're reparative capital. And for me, I'm just like, I don't care. It's under the umbrella of 0% to 1% dollars. And you're matching it with $1,000. So I'm like, that's the structure. But I'm just saying, I think we have to own this from the community's perspective, but it's the funders, investors that get it twisted.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, I'm happy to hear it coming, but as quickly as people are like, well, we need to define it, and we're going to have to create the container so it will get destroyed again. But I think the conversation on what reparative capital to me at least, as a philosophy, and the acknowledge the history of how we got here, deal with your grief and sit in it.
Yes, Asha.
And give us the kind of resources we need to accelerate what we're doing, and don't create a third fund on top of the fund to build a fund to the fund. You know what I mean? You don't need to do the research. We don't need you to So I bring that because I do think it's exciting to hear where it is, but I also just name it that we spend so much time contorting to this stuff.
Yeah.
I want to be reparative capital is what we're doing, and what other community members who are in our communities are doing it. We get to define it. You as funders, investors, just give us and the terms we're asking for at the size we want. You can call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
You can call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
And I think for me that's important to say, because our stuff gets co-opted all the time.
Yeah.
And suddenly reparative capital will be 5% at blah, blah, blah. And guess who's going to be getting it? Not our communities. So be curious, but really, really push for the the values and the components that we have discussed. That's the most important part.
Sister. Yes.
All right. Can I get a round of applause again for Vanessa and Jessica? Thank y'all so much.
Thank you, everybody. And Lynn, one more time. Give it up for my girl. Thank you, Lynn.